Heart. The meaning of the cross in the lives of all of us. Believing in the redeeming power it has in our lives. And even sweeping our mindset, the often masochistic view. Which we can do. Even from a mistaken view of suffering. First, it is interesting to understand that the cross is a place of redemption. It is of purification. It is not a place to stay. It is a passage. The cross will always be an itinerary for us to achieve great results. I know that in our Christianity we were very fixed on the cross. And it is even interesting, sometimes we identify some crosses without Christ, just to remember that it was a place of the passage. But the place of the Christian, the final destination of every Christian, is the empty tomb. It is the resurrection of Jesus who fills us with courage so that we can go through the process of the cross. It is so gratifying for us to identify the positive dimension of the cross. For example, when I look back and remember the nights of sleep lost because of my studies, I did 2 colleges, a postgraduate, a master's degree. I devoted myself a lot of time to study. And it is not easy to study, as pleasurable to know always has that portion of renunciation. I remember my master's degree. Classes started 1 in the afternoon. One time we can't even read a package insert. You study. You sitting listening until 5 in the afternoon, my God in heaven. It was no joke. No, it was a cross. But what did I want with a master's degree? Just the title? No, I wanted to qualify my father being. One day I understood and learned that the best way I have to live my priesthood is to seek his purest water, both in the spiritual dimension, also in the intellectual dimension. And I can offer those who pass through my life pure water. Studying for me was a cross experience, yes, of pleasure, but above all cross. Because it made me have to be. The experience of studying made me have to be at times I didn't want to be. Do you know what this means in your life? It is very likely that you have a much more demanding daily life than mine. I work hard, I have an extremely dynamic life, and 70% of it is cruise. Thank God I have the 30% satisfaction. Traveling to me is not easy. Displacement for me is very painful. These comings and goings require me a lot. They withdraw me from my routine. They don't allow me to have routine, in fact. This is a cross for me. But I know what God achieves in me and with me through this work. So it is a mission that I do with great joy. But the cross is the passage. It is not the definitive place. I do not live on the cross. I live cross experiences. My place is the resurrection. My place is the empty tomb. It is in the empty tomb that I do my experience of being who I am and pure hope. All hope of the tomb is in me. The mother is the tender all day in her hand, all day connected in the new song, or she is seeing a lecture. She is exam. My mother faces her suffering, very redeeming. I, who I'm a priest, can't live like her. It's a goal of life for me, my mother. A Christianity that I may be able to reach 10, 15, 20, 30 years old. I don't know. The cross is the place of my protection. You know why? We will always be exposed when we will suffer. It is the moment of indigence. You enter the hospital and you see the indigents there. We are not even protected by the clothes we wear on a daily basis. Inside the hospital, we use a hospital costume to make it easier to read with us. This already demonstrates that we are indigent. You are not on your high heels. I'm not in my shoe. I don't have my shirt. You are not with yours. We do not wear the clothes that cover our indigence. On the contrary, we wear clothes that show our indigence. That moment, the moment of suffering, the moment of pain, the moment of struggle. Suffering is the indigence, and we are unprotected. When you cry before someone, you are unprotected. Your sensitivity. The other has you in your hands. Now the cross. When I have this internalized brand inside me, which is the conviction, see? It is not the hanging little cross, no, it is not. This is just a symbol that brings us to the cross that is configured in our mind. I know the meaning of Christianity, and so I have a cross in my chest that is material, which can be taken. But the cross that identifies me is not the one that is out. It is the understanding I have already made of the cross. The meaning of suffering in human life in the light of faith. It is the cross that I have internalized in my conviction. This is the one that protects me, because she doesn't leave me alone. I know God is with me because the gospel shows me that. All the time, Jesus makes a point of being with those who suffer. He makes no point in being with the powerful, healthy. He makes a point of walking after those who need him, starting with friends, from the first disciples, all of them. Be honest, learn about the meaning of being people, dealing with indigence daily, and having the genital. Sexual intercourse is one that involves all the being. The other is not just a body that is before me. The other is a being, which has the dimension of sexual, physical, genital, but it only makes sense if it is plenified with the sexual meaning of the totality. It's someone who is being loved, is someone who is loving, but that does not always happen. Cynthia. But wait, ask this disconcerting question to her. Wait, is your life project now to be object? Born to be an object? Are you willing to live this time of life as the object of the other? Don't you think you deserve to be happy? Don't you think you deserve to break this chain of destruction that the other is imposing there? Bringing a number of bad, harmful thing. Wake up the other for it. You've heard me always here. I don't miss the opportunity. Every time I have the opportunity to speak against socialized and non-socialized addictions. How many young people are losing their lives today because they are no longer able to say no to crack, cocaine, marijuana? Kill yourself, my people. Steal their own family. Why? Because they lost their own love. When we lose the self-love, we are capable of any kind of prostitution. And we prostitute ourselves in many ways, not only in the body. No, we prostitute ourselves in the mind. We prostitute ourselves into character. When I get along with liars to be able to have some benefit. When I start to receive abominable situations in my life, and I start to make a pact with all this, I'm prostituting myself. We need to be aware all the time that we are not born for such petty projects. We were born for much more. God's project in our lives, in our history, is for much more. We cannot level underneath. God dreamed for me and for you much noblest situations. I don't want to waste the hours I have with petty shops. I will not waste my communication time with gossip or responding to aggression. No. I don't want to give time. I don't want to give my time. I don't want to waste my time on what I know will not build. Or build what is communicating with me the option for life she spends all the time. Jesus said very wisely to his friends, referring to the arrival of the kingdom, eschatology, around, watch, and pray. This Christian posture. I need to watch all my choices all the time. I need to watch all the time what is happening to me. And pray about it. Reflect. Vigio. And reflect. And if necessary, I mute. I change focus. Why? It does not give. You cannot waste time. You do not have the right to unhappy the project God has for you, which is wonderful. Don't think God thought small about you. God thought very great with you, and everything he expects from you is there inside you. You just need to flourish. Just need to bear fruit. Only those who have proved the pain, who suffered bitterness, saw the cross and life in real tones, who rightly sought, but in the wrong one was lost, had to know how to start. How long do we have to be who we are? We won't be wasting time with not being or realizing the other's dream. Because he imagined me like this and like that. No? Life is urgent, and we need to live with great disposition the opportunity to be today. Here. Right now. Many times we don't change the attitude. It's because we don't change the way of thinking. It is interesting how much it is really true when I have difficulty living with someone. If you don't change the way I interpret the other, it won't change my way of treating it. I bump into it all the time, my people. You know very well, accompany me. You know how public. My life exposes me all the time. And I need to have a lot of security in being so I can do what I do. And from time to time, bumps into my life, through a letter, through an email. It's natural. But the moment I am not interpreted the way I need to be, I have every right to set that limit. And often people approach us with such a greedy desire to be our administrators, right? Why? You are playing you wrong. Many weddings go wrong because of this. Because the husband interprets the woman as a good of consumption, does not interpret it as a human being who has wills, who has wishes, which has dreams. So the attitude, often that curters, which will assault, will only be modified the moment the husband looks at his wife and interpreting her in a new way. There is freedom. And in freedom, we can be brothers, we can be friends, we can be happy, because no one is prevented from being. At many times in your life, you were unhappy because someone denied what you were. It didn't give you the opportunity to be who you were. Then, my friend, is a disaster. When we are not interpreted in a right way, when the eye looks at us the same way it looks at a wall, or a picture on the wall, or it looks at us as if it were a decoration object in his life, you runs the risk of being objectified. Lost its identity, ceased to be. He entered the dimension of doing in the most cruel way a human being can enter. There is no other way. I don't know. I can't be holy if I don't touch my human issues, if I don't improve them and modify these structures. Through a word, you suddenly discover that you are living the condition of object, and that in the condition of object, no happiness may be possible to human life, and that we have no right to objectify anyone or accept the object of the other. Is life. And it's so beautiful when we find out with each other. Wow. Sorry. I'm objectifying you. I'm not leaving their free being. I am not allowing you to be you. And love is born of this ability to respect these limits, and to understand that the other is in the process of transformation. Not what I want, but in what God wants for him. For that we love each other, right? When I want you well, I am providing you to be who you are, and at the same time, helping to remove the excesses that harm your being. Living identity is us somehow, to have a reference of who we are, and from knowing who we are, find out what we should do. There's always a being that precedes what it does. This is identity. Just like the doctor. He is a man, has a story, and makes medicine an exercise of being. Is not true? But before he was the doctor, he is that boy who was educated in the countryside, or it was that boy who grew up in the capital, son of so, and so, son of Sicrano, the brother of Tal. That one, there is a being that was built. There is an identity that it does not lose. Although medicine takes you to conquer many places in the world, it will always have a root in being. He is, and that is what I identify. In fact, when we enter the office of a doctor, a lawyer, a professional, what will attract him is not just what he does with his profession. Not so much so that he knows. It is not how much he knows of law or medicine, but it is what he is as a person. Because what is makes the difference the moment he makes. You know how to do many things, but you also know from this reflection that what you do is totally touched by what you are. I read a very beautiful phrase this week of an author who now I don't remember the name, thus saying, "The mirror shows us the face and art shows us the soul." Every time we are facing a work of art, somehow our soul reveals itself, because it causes our sensitivity, causes what we are. And you know that I keep thinking that in life, we're very lacking in situations that provoke our being. Because sometimes we do so much, we work so much, we fall into a life of so many activities that we risk living without knowing what we are. Because practical life often encourages our doing and not our being. And is that why I need to have my moments of cultivating who I am? And that is why our human maturity depends on these visits we do when it is. Because it is in the being that we change what it does. It's no use you want to modify your action if you have not changed the root that causes this action. It is much deeper. It is no use that you try to change a concrete and practical attitude if you do not change their reason for the attitude that is in being. Being is the house of all reason. Love is born in being. That's why what we do, our love gestures, they are directly linked to our being that loves. This is why the heart, when he is used to loving, when being always projects to solidarity, for love to fraternity, he will be very easy to do good. The gesture I make, it can be beautiful, maybe even kind. Why? Because a connection is often missing between my heart and my gesture. It is here, in my thinking, in my brain activity, in my intellectual motives. It is here, where my heart beats, where all my feelings are processed, where my sensations also exist, and help me to be who I am. That the first dimension of Christianity forms. It is Christian formatting. We could use a modern term, wouldn't it? When you format your computer, what do? You transform it, you remove it, you clean everything that was there, and you project it for a new time. That's what baptism does to us. He removes us from an ancient condition and formats to a new life. So, from my baptism, I am dipped in this new way of being of Jesus. And because I am a Christian, my attitudes will be born naturally. Christian. Naturalite is a difficult word because our crystal gesture is not always natural, but it is because the conversion of being is lacking. It is natural that I want good. It is natural that I do not sow discord. It is natural that I know how to control my vanities. It is natural that I can control my pride. It is natural that I do not want to lie. Because the being is connected in Jesus and knows very well that living the dynamics of Jesus is precisely to deny all this. It is not wanting it as part. When we look at Jesus, we find out who we should be, how we should think. I have spoken here so many times that the Apostle Paul understood, because Paul was a very cultured man, and in fact, all Christian theology bumps all the time in the Pauline concepts, that he gave somehow this intellectual coding for simple thought of Jesus. Then what does he say? That we need first transform our mindset. Have you heard me about it? Methane is the change of mindset. If it rotates to the right, we will rotate to the left. But I would like to summarize all this in this sentence, or perhaps in a nutshell. You are a sacred territory. To say that you are a child of heaven, even if you have already missed a lot in life, even if you have already failed a lot, it doesn't matter. Today is the day to remember that you are a holy territory. And by recognizing that it is a holy territory, you have the right to undo all the irregular camps that may have happened in your life. People who arrived, structures, mentalities, things that have suddenly taken over you and who turned into an object in a good. If you want to know if you live any form of kidnapping of subjectivity, just answer it to yourself. Does anyone ask you for something that is harmful to you? And are you able to do just to be able to satisfy the other? Be careful, because we often think this is love, and it is not. The donation to the other never, but will never even ask you to self-destruct. You can sacrifice yourself, but sacrifice is not synonymous with destruction. Sacrifice does not destroy us. Sacrifice makes us nobler. For example, the other comes and speaks like this. You will smoke this weed to prove that you love me. You will make this sacrifice for me. No, this is not a sacrifice. Sacrifice is that you remove a reality from a common context, and you give it a sacred meaning. So I will make the sacrifice of spending the awake night awake with a sick person. Why? Because I love this person, because this person has a meaning for me. So, I will sacrifice my health there that night, and I will give my time of this common attitude. You see, a sleepless night is something common, but the sacrifice is me. I take this sleepless night and give to her a sacred meaning. I made her a sacrifice. What was common? Staying without sleep. I gave a noble meaning. I sacrificed, became sacred. Now when I find out that I am doing things, entering certain situations, destroying me because of someone else, so I risk having a disordered bond with it. That needs to be reflected all the time, my people. The kidnapping starts slowly. See? No one takes us at once. We start to be taken slowly. The invader is elegant. The kidnapper of affections, he is elegant. Then you are already under command. Human relationships that can be within marriage, in friendship, work relations, where you are destroying yourself because of the other, and you are no longer able to say no. You already assume this destruction as a life project. Then you need help. This is very present in the precocitors. Why? Because the teenager is not often prepared for love. Sometimes there are so many conflicts there and still have to manage a relationship for two. This is a danger. Many young women are kidnapped from the point of view of subjectivity by arriving adults who begin to take possession of that world without much protection. The teenager affectionately is inexperienced. So these passions of adolescence are so dangerous because the person gets blind. It gets blind. So be careful. Every time you find that you are living a relationship that is stealing you, set the boundaries. I always like to say that the other will treat us the way we authorize. Every time we identify that there is an exaggeration of the other, set your limit. This territory here is mine. This territory here is sacred. It will only come in if I take the sandal out of my feet and recognize that I am not you, that I am not your extension, that I do not have an obligation to be you again, that I have no obligation to live to satisfy your desires, that I don't have to be your object. We have already spoken here so many times about object relations. What are object relations? They are those in which one part identifies the other as the object of their satisfaction. This is highly destructive and very common. Very common when the other is not able to recognize that you are a human being, when he looks at you just like a machine. Sex does that a lot. It is impressive how sex can make the other an object. It's because in sexuality, people exercise. They need to live a healthy sexuality. They need to exercise in 2 dimensions. Because sex is not just the body. A sexual intercourse is much more than the meeting of 2 bodies. The meeting of 2 bodies. Do the following. Find out a way of living your work, your wealth, from Christian values. It is no sin to be rich. It is not sin to be rich. Sin is to be soap, not wanting to divide what you have. Sin is not wanting to divide what you are. So if you have social influences, do everything to do a beautiful job in the society you live. Don't be that futile, madam, for example. We find so much futile madame that the only concern she has is the last powder that came out, the last cream to stretch the wrinkle, or the hairdresser, the last. No, because this futility, it does not allow you to live the most beautiful in your heart. God enters our lives to purify our excesses. So, you have all the right to be a madame, a beautiful woman, well-arranged. That you are able to do so, but at the same time you are sensitive to live simply, to share what you are and what you have with the people you know. By the way, I think a person is only thin as they are polite too, as they know how to welcome people who are close. Where she is not on the jump looking at everyone from afar and thinking she's better than everyone. No. I keep seeing this at work we do, right? The more influential we get on a society, the greater the responsibility that people have to act socially. The more recognition our work has, the greater our responsibility to unite our name, our money, what yields our work with the needs that are on our side. Charity institutions, those realities that need materially and spiritually from us. So beautiful we unite, right? Our strengths, so we can do well for those who need us. This is hurrying the kingdom. This is living the grace of the church. This is you purify. You don't have to feel guilty that you have more conditions. No, the sake of God. Now, do not allow the logic of capitalism to remove your ability to be good, your ability to be sensitive. Because the great problem of capitalism is that, in the name of production and sale, it goes over everyone. The person is devalue the money. Poor has no value within the capitalist context, because it is just an instrumental to get there. How many people enslaved in their work mechanisms? Precisely because they have bosses who do not think about the good of the other, just want to use the other as one mechanism to reach money. Power. This is what we need to work on. But it doesn't mean now we'll have to make the world poor. No, that's not that. The poverty that religious life proposes, which priestly life proposes, is much more than material poverty. It is the ability to welcome the one that arrives. And, for example, how many congregations are rich? The great sin these congregations can accomplish is precisely as they close in the wealth they have and do nothing for the poor. Is not true. When you realize that money's managed to surrender this, that Papa. But there is no social commitment to society. This, we cannot admit. And this is where we have to enter. You don't have to criticize the congregations, the church. No. You have to make the criticism for me. Me. I'm Father Fábio. I have a job. I fight my daily life. I work to survive. I pay my beads. I survive what I do. But now, how do I run what surrender from the work I do? Am I being a capitalist? Or am I having a social sensitivity with what yields the work that is mine? Then you ask yourself this question too. You don't have to be a priest to ask yourself. Andre, if this question we all have to ask for us to be able to sleep in peace with our conscience. Today, the world is marked by necessity, both material and spiritual. I bump into both of them and have increasingly asked God for the grace of not being insensitive to any of them. What we can do, we have to do. I, for example, was born of a poor family. My brothers are poor until today. Helping my brothers to me is a social responsibility. I am wrong? I'm not. It is no use for me doing my charities there for the institution, if suddenly I am not sensitive to the need of my brothers. This is a responsibility that is always imposed on my heart. When I had to take a new life stance precisely because of that, I needed to take care of my mother. It's a social responsibility that I have, but it doesn't close me in my world with my needs. No, and as far as possible, as I can afford it, I want to help my brothers. I want to give them possibilities for improvement in life. These are people who are important to me. Do you live what God gives you only for you, or are you having sensitivity to perceive the people on our side? Then I tell you too, to you who watch us now. And suddenly it's true. I never stop to think about it. No problem, you have the fruit of your work. If your work earned you a lot, if your profession has given you a lot of money, it is no problem. The problem is what you do with what your profession has given you, with what your office has given you. It's so sad, my people, when you realize that a person, she takes a power post and she is treating people badly because of it. I have a sensitive look to perceive the other. This is the greatest beauty I see in a person. When she has money, she is successful. She is a famous person. She is a person who has achieved a lot in life. But she has not lost the sensitivity of looking at simple people in their eyes and treating them well. Even because there is no greater and more beautiful wealth in this life than you have a human being sensitive to the needs of your time. Father, do you know when we feel a weight within us? Afraid that everything can go wrong? Yeah, I'm feeling that way. Do you know when a person feels lost in the midst of confusion? Yeah, this is me. That's how I feel. It is a meaningless sadness. I know I have a potential to be happy, to look much more. Even incentive other people do the same. I encourage them not to have fear, but I'm experiencing a lot of this fear. I feel prisoner, and it has bothered me. This has given me a great anguish. Somehow we all include ourselves. Because who doesn't have to live this daily challenge? Living is a daily challenge. It's like drinking water. The water you took yesterday is not for today's headquarters. The food you ate yesterday, of course, he may be nourishing you yet, but you need to renew the food. The meaning for life is like that too. I break the rules of defects for me to start living on the rules of virtues. I have sensitivity, simplicity to identify my excesses, what makes me a difficult person, and start working. The sooner I start working this, the greater the benefit. Because it's good for us to live the conversion. We are more enjoyable, we are happier, we are more fulfilled. And this is the first benefit of conversion, that when we give up these excesses, we get even more beautiful. Because you start to make room to grow in you, what the excesses do not allow. Many virtues do not grow in us. It is because defects suffocate it. The defect has an ordinary, absurd power of choking daily. It is just like the one who is addicted. While he doesn't look in the mirror and says, "This addiction kills me," he doesn't start to break free. It's no use saying. The addict must recognize himself as a killer of himself. Only from the moment he recognizes himself does he stop killing himself. And that addiction, which is an ordinary poison, because it is every day, he stops in the veins. He stops in his mouth. He stops polluting his head. And that person suddenly begins to perceive beautiful things, which until then, she did not notice. Because addiction did not allow. My people, sometimes we are cultivating some harmful habits, and we no longer accuse ourselves. You know that a great human damage which I identified is that people get used to what they feel bad. They adapt to what's bad. They lost the ability to be outraged. As I was saying, sometimes you can't recruit the best in yourself. It is being shot down. That's I. This is not just your problem, my daughter. All of us. If we do not take care, we are losing the reference to reality. What we really need to do. For what? Do it to achieve the best of us. This is conversion. When I lose the ability to indignate with what is bad in my ambience, I lose the power to transform. It is the indignation that moves me toward change. It is a damage that we cannot measure when a human being gets used to the defects he has. Because sometimes people forget to allow God to transform their hearts. Sometimes it transforms only the outside aspect. But what about the heart? What is this that makes me before each other? Is this that makes me promoting the other? In love? Tolerance? Sometimes people don't look into each other. Sometimes we are feeding a difficult, heavy temperament, and we say that it is converted or is in the process of conversion. Okay. But what process is that not accelerating our simplicity? Our lightness. What conversion is this that does not make me a lighter person to others? What conversion is this that I get out of arrogance? It is the first sign, my people, whom they say religious, because it is the fruit of spirituality in us. I do not feel better than anyone. I look in the eyes of others without pretending that I am better than them. He knows. If I'm a good boss, it's okay to be hard. The good boss is usually hard, demanding but never arrogant, demanding but never intolerant, demanding but not unbearable. And I have the opportunity to choose to be a positive answer or be a negative answer. I can be an evangelical response here, based on this word, or I can be an unholy answer, which has no commitment to the sacredity of life. People. I can be a Christian response that will favor good friendship relationships. Relationships fruitful. Loving. You can be a positive answer as a husband in your wife's life, in your children's lives. You may be in your husband's life, your children, your brothers. You got out of bed, you start to be an answer to the world. This is interesting. When I realize that a sacrifice, a gesture of renunciation will help me break the power of the rules of defects. Because a human being who lives adapted to his shortcomings, a human being who lives under the rules of his defects, he is unbearable. He is difficult at work. He is difficult within the family. He is difficult in the love relationships he will live. Why? Because he is apig, and you are always ready to throw your thorns on others. Thank you for joining us today at Path of Faith. Your engagement means the world to us. So please take a moment to leave your comments, like this video, share it with friends and family, and subscribe for more enriching content.